This is a KUNV Studios original program.
The content of this program does not reflect the views or opinions of 91.5 Jazz and More, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, or the Board of Regents of the Nevada System of Higher Education.
Lights, camera, action. Welcome to Rebel Film Friday. We talk about films of all kinds every Friday at 6 p.m. And I'm your host, Cameron. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to Rebel Film Friday. Today, we'll be running around in a shopping mall in the middle of the night chased by killer robots because the movie we're talking about for this week, for our third movie of Spooky Movie Month here at Rebel Film Friday, is Chopping Mall, released in 1986, directed by Jim Wynorski, starring Kelli Maroney and Tony O'Dell. Upon release, Chopping Mall was not received well financially or critically, but over time it's gained a small cult following. Once again, we will be spoiling the entirety of the movie, so if you haven't seen Chopping Mall, please watch it before listening to this episode. You can find Chopping Mall on home video or on wherever it is available streaming. And without further ado, let's talk about some killer robots. So, first question of the day. Horror movies are often only as good as their villains. There's obviously Michael Myers, Ghostface from Scream, so let's talk about the killbots in this movie. The killbots have two treads, which they roll around with, two claw arms, and a horizontal red strip for an eye that for some reason shoots lasers even though they are security bots. So, what do you think makes a horror villain iconic? And what is your opinion on where the killbots rank in horror history?
Well, I think what makes a horror villain iconic is essentially there's only one murderer. There's only one thing going on. And I feel someone might want to say, oh, Alien. No, in the first movie of Alien, there's only one alien. There's only one. Then they go to more. However, it's iconic because it is threatening and it's solo, which is why I feel the horror robots aren't really that iconic. And also, they're like dangerous. They're a threat. They put fear into essentially anyone. And yeah, that's kind of what makes them iconic.
I think something that makes any character, but I guess villain specifically, being iconic is the unique aspect of it, and the killbots, in my opinion, are not very unique, not something new, they're robots that kill people. Another thing I think is like what AJ said, the solo killer kind of thing is scary because there's so many victims, but there's this one threat that's so threatening that it becomes frightening even for the viewer.
Yeah, to add on to that, their design is also very basic. If I think, what is the time frame of this movie?
This is the 80s.
80s, cool. That's what I thought. If I think 80s mall killer robots, that is exactly what I envision. It's so bland and it's so goofy looking. Not to mention, they're so incompetent. If the main characters weren't more incompetent, those robots wouldn't have been able to kill anything.
I will say, though, the robots have some very interesting gadgets for security robots. They have laser eyes. Mm-hmm. They have tasers. They have claw arms that can slash someone's neck open. And I think they have explosives at one point, too. But overall, I think that the line that they deliver is iconic. The "Have a nice day." Mm. It's so funny and ironic. I love it. It's great. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons it's become a cult classic is even though it's not like iconic like Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger or Jason, it's still iconic in the way that it's a funny iconic.
I think it's almost it's so bad it's good kind of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like a B movie or a B picture because it's one of those lower budget ones, but they've made it iconic because the bots themselves are just really funny.
Yeah.
They have kind of more personality than some of the characters do. Because the bots do certain things that make them seem not like robots, and they're just like people. Which at some points they are, in the shots during the escalator, there's someone actually wearing the bots, as a suit. Because the bots were too wide to go up the escalators. All right, so that's what we've talked about what makes the killbots iconic. Now let's get on to a really fun question here. All right, so during this time frame, the first Terminator movie also came out. I'm sure all of us here have seen Terminator at one point or another. I at least know what the Terminator is. So this is a little thought question. Would you rather be hunted by the Terminator for 24 hours, or AJ just put on his very nice aviator glasses to look
I'll
like
be
the
back.
Terminator. Very nice. All right. So, would you rather be stuck in the shopping mall with the 3 killbots from closing to opening, which is about 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., or would you rather be hunted by the Terminator for 24 hours, and why?
I would say the killbots for 24 hours. I think I could hide in the air vents for 24 hours and be good, as opposed to the Terminator, who is a technologically superior killing machine who could find me and track me down, and I'd be gone.
So is the question of which one would we choose, or which one we have a higher likelihood of surviving?
It's kind of both of those apply. It's like you have to do one of these. Which one would you rather do? Which one do you think you would survive?
For me personally, it would be the 12 hours in the mall, because as we can see in the very beginning, it's not just a simple, oh, it's a mall. No, this is like a mega story complex where there's like 6 different floors. There's lots of stores. Plus, like, they really only interrogate when there's like sound or they see something going on. They're not like, oh, let me go through this door to see if someone's in there. No, they're like just patrolling. They only actually investigate when they see people right there, and they can hear, I think, maybe hear noises. But I think it would just be easier to deal with them. Plus, I mean, the Terminator, it just keeps going. Whereas those robots, you can take them out.
The 12 hours in the mall, I think the killbots are very incompetent, so that would probably be the easiest one to survive. Although, for the Terminator choice, that's not stuck in the mall, right?
No, you're not stuck in the mall with the Terminator. You have the open ground, which is kind of the advantage there, is that you can go anywhere. Like, you could physically just drive for 24 hours away from the Terminator, assuming he doesn't, like, catch you on a motorbike or anything. Here's the reason why I think that the killbots aren't as great of an option, is because in the movie, there are only 3 levels. Like, they specify there's 3. And they have a protector on each level. They have 1 protector on the first level, 1 protector on the second level, 1 protector on the third level. On top of that, they have things that no normal security bot would have, and they have access to the entire systems of the mall. So in the part where they're in, like, the vents, they start turning up the heat. Like, literally cooking the girls out of the vents.
I thought that was simply because they were freaking out. I didn't.
No, they were
heat.
actually turning up the heat.
Oh, okay.
So they have control of the mall and its security systems, which is already something bad. But on top of that, it was pretty difficult for them to actually kill the killbots. I mean, it took a lot of effort. They had to use all the paint thinner and stuff to just set one ablaze and kill it. And the other ones needed, like, really big explosions. And even if you had the guns, they wouldn't work. But for the Terminator argument, the Terminator is still very, like, threatening. You're going to be hunted down by one of the most advanced killing machines known to mankind. So I think I'd probably still take the killbots overall.
My biggest point about all of that is, as well, in the very beginning, they do kill, like, the people on site. However, when you notice, they actually don't start turning up the temperature until, like, they enter the room where they saw people going up into the vents while the boys went off into the other direction. So they're more reactionary than, like, they know all, they see all. Like, it would just be easier to kind of trick them. And the part about the Terminator versus the killbots, even though they're hard to destroy, they can be destroyed. The Terminator, however, on the other hand, keeps coming back. So even though your argument about, like, guns wouldn't work against the killbots, they wouldn't work against the Terminator, because, you know, he goes through everything.
I feel like you might be doing the wrong thing if you're trying to fight back in either of these scenarios.
Yes.
Get a passport.
Like, just
go to
hide.
China or something.
Yeah.
Or just
I think a plane is a bad idea, especially if you're running away from the Terminator, because the Terminator could just hop on the plane or, like, run, like, towards the plane and, like, grab onto it and get in it. And then you're stuck in a confined space, thousands of feet in the air, with the Terminator.
What do you think about a boat? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
A boat? I don't know, because it depends. Like, if it's like a cruise ship, what kind of boat are you thinking about?
Big boat.
Like a cruise ship big, or like a yacht big, or
Cruise ship big, probably.
cruise ship big? So, like, if you took a cruise.
Yeah.
I feel like you could still run from the Terminator on a cruise,
Yeah.
but it's still a confined space, which makes it more difficult.
So instead of... Okay, so go to Canada. Drive to Canada, I guess.
Drive to Canada?
But then when you're getting gas, he can catch up with you.
Yes, that's true. That's the problem with trying to run from the Terminator, because he can like catch up really fast.
So what if you know how to fly? You take your Cessna and you just fly.
Yeah, I mean, you
like-
probably could do that.
Yeah.
Like in a movie, I'm expecting the Terminator to kill the people at the airport and read the flight like record and just drive to where you're gonna land.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then, the scene, he's on the runway and you crash the plane into the Terminator.
Or he could be your like flight, the dude in the flight tower that
The
tells you
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
because he can mimic people's voices.
True.
So it's a lot. It's a lot of different nuances that like tell us what would be the better option.
For me, I'm just trying to break it down. Terminator can practically do anything that we do and can use anything that we use, whether that's weapons, explosives, anything. Killbots, they're limited to their stuff. They can't go up in the vents. They're not that tall. You can abuse their physical limitations and wear them out.
Speaking of abusing their physical limitations, do you remember the scene from the pet store where the main character is like hiding underneath the shelf and the killbot doesn't see her until she starts freaking out about the bugs? I'm telling you, they only have like a limited.
They only have side-to-side vision.
Yeah.
If you just lay on the floor, they'll never find you.
Yeah, they're not that smart. Whereas the Terminator, he knows where to look for information of where you are, what to do, like way smarter. Whereas the Killbots, it's like, oh, I see person, I go kill, have a nice day. It's as simple as that.
That's fair. All right, moving on to our next question. Much like many horror movies from the 80s, Chopping Mall suffers from some forgettable main characters. While some, like Fergie, may be a little memorable, a majority of them have little to no characterization. How does lack of memorable characters affect the movie, and how could the movie improve their characterization if the script was revised? I'll go first on this one. So, I think that one of the main things about, like, actually having good characters in a horror movie is redeemable qualities. They have to act like normal people, but they can't be like dumb, because you can't have all your characters just being all stupid all the time. You have to have some competent characters in a horror movie.
Also make them like different, because they all just seem simple and plain, because it's like you got your homeboys, you got your homegirls, you got the nerd boy, you got the nerd girl. Like, it's really easy to just categorize them rather than just, oh, this person, they like this, they do this. Oh, this person does X, Y, and Z. Like, they're essentially all the same. They react the same way. They're stupid. There's no redeeming qualities. There's no, like, final girl moment, really. Like, even the final girl didn't feel that final girl. It kind of felt like, oh, well, we kind of ran out of money. We need to wrap this up. And, I mean, it's still a final girl moment, but just definitely adding personality to the characters. They just seem one-dimensional.
It felt very like middle school film project kind of acting too.
Yeah, it definitely did. It was one of those lower budget movies that came out during that time, so it wasn't exactly great. I feel like a lot of the characters fall into stereotypes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like stereotypes of like the jock boy and like the nerd boy, and it's very plain with its characters, so there's no depth that can be really added to them. And most of the times, like nowadays, when we see tropes like that, they're usually turned on their head. So if there is a jock boy, there's going to be some sort of thing that turns the character of him. Like there's a little irony in there. Or if we see a nerd boy, there's going to be like there's going to be a little irony. Or if there's a final girl, we're going to see just a little bit of twist, because we've seen horror done so many times up to this point. But back in like the 80s, that was the golden age of slashers. So they were just doing what was working at the time, which was there's just stupid kids that do stupid things and something bad happens to them. It's a lot of like the sin factor. So back in like the 80s, you'd see a lot of horror movies where it's like, these kids are partying and doing alcohol and drugs. And since they're doing that, there is something bad's going to happen to them. But the one girl who didn't do alcohol and drugs, she's going to stay alive. Because it was kind of like that era of like the DARE program with Reagan and stuff. It's very much advertising that you should stay away from sin, which is an interesting concept. All right, so let's move on to the next question. All right, on the subject of the killer robots, how do the killbots and other artificial enemies like them in cinema at the time embody societal concerns about technology and innovation?
Well, I mean, we were just talking about it before. Terminator. They had this constant fear of, the future. It's going to be unpredictable. It's going to have an AI. It's going to take over the world. Like all the same kind of genre of how there's stuff that is going to be out of our control in the future.
Yeah, I feel like as we were moving forward in the 80s, which is really as technology was really starting to develop, especially we're getting towards the computer age, we're getting towards the internet age, we are ramping up in terms of technological developments. People are starting to get scared because when things aren't normal anymore, when we have new normals, it's scary because it's the unknown. And that's one of the big things that horror is about, is the fear of the unknown. Alien by Ridley Scott really talks about the fear of the unknown. It's one of the big themes. And same with a lot of other horror movies. What we don't know is scary to us.
Yeah, it's the 80s is just like an era of rapid consumerism. Consumer, is that the right word?
Consumerism, yeah.
Okay. Consumerism and just progression entirely. So it's like, especially like combining to the, I'm forgetting every word in my vocabulary right now.
No worries.
It's like leeching onto this conservative ideal that like, oh, in the future's going to be so bad. They're going to have all these robots and AI. It's going to really, AI could not write your paper now. Like, it's so easily predictable that if you have AI write your paper, you're done for immediately. It's not that competent, and it's funny to see what people thought in the past.
I think we commonly forget during the 80s because, there's all this, like, fancy, stuff, that it was still the Cold War at that time. And so there's a lot of, like, those technological kind of, like, bleak themes still, even behind the flashy neon colors. And so I think with, like, the killbots and things like that, it was, like, worried about, like, those Armageddon themes, like, what if we still get into a conflict with the Soviet Union kind of stuff. So I think even though the 80s in America was themed with all these new sci-fi fun things, there's still that looming threat. And so, like, that entire Terminator, Armageddon, future post-apocalyptic world kind of thing was a very real concern.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Jaden, you brought up something that I really want to touch upon is consumerism. And since this entire movie takes place in a shopping mall, what do you think about what the movie has to say on consumerism in the 80s? Because the 80s were really big on commercials and brands. And this was like about the time where we had a pretty decent economy and consumerism was huge. So what do you think the movie says about American consumerism?
It's definitely an interesting play on American consumerism. Just the vitality of consumerism that they play off, especially to put killer robots in a mall, is wild to me. Anybody else have thoughts? I don't really have.
I mean, it's less about the consumerism part, but just more of like a haha funny connection. This was before FNAF Security Breach, which I think is amazingly just funny that a movie so, like, not poor, but like it was so bad that it was good, is like made, not even though it's not based off of inspiration, but the fact on how it kind of repeats that same theme in the future, but as a game, I think that's kind of ironic and funny.
Yeah. I want to go back to the consumerism point because I have a few different things I'd like to talk about there. I think the movie could be perceived as both pro and anti-consumerism, depending on how you look at it. It's pro-consumerism in the way that none of the customers are technically, like, hurt. It's only the bad kids who stayed after and partied. Ooh, boo bad kids for taking the rules of consumerism and twisting them and going against the rules of them all. But at the same time, it's the protection of goods, the need to protect all these things in the mall, that this person would put killer robots that have laser eyes in the mall to stop theft that lead to the death of these kids.
Seems like a industrial complex, like military industrial complex, accidentally introducing these bots to a mall.
You know what? I think my theory on it is that this was on purpose. Like, the dude actually just wanted the kids to die. He just hated the employees a ton. And he was like, you know what? What's the easiest way I can get rid of them? They like to spend time here after the mall. So let's just make these robots that can, let's say, miraculously short circuit. But at the same time, it probably isn't. The whole start of the movie, the reason the robots go bad is because of the electrical shock to the building. Which I should say, you should not keep the thing that controls your killer robots on the top of the building with like a little copper rod attached to it for lightning bolts to hit. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But do you think that the killer robots are overkill? Do you think the killbots are just a little bit overkill in this movie?
I think that's what makes it funny. Like, it's just too much.
Yeah, to the point of Corbin, it's like, oh yeah, you have a security robot. And then next thing you know, oh, it has lasers. Like, the taser makes sense. The claws kind of makes sense, but not to the point where it would rip someone's throat. And then what doesn't make sense to me, which I find so baffling, it has plastic explosives. Why would a security robot need plastic explosives? Like, you know what? Lasers, I can get it. Maybe a stun laser, maybe like, oh, it hurts. Get away from my store. What are you going to do with plastic explosives to defend? That's going to do more damage than protecting.
It also has a laser cutter. Remember when they...
Oh my gosh, yes. Literally technology that is so far ahead of its time in the 80s, and they're like, you know what? Let's just throw it in the shopping mall. What do you have to defend in the shopping mall that needs laser cutters, laser eyes, killer robots?
This isn't Ocean 11.
Literally, it is an Ocean... And even in Ocean 11, they didn't have that good some security. If they had the security bots in Ocean 11, no one would have made it out alive. Especially, like... The killbots have some brutal kills in the movie. Like, I'd say the most famous one, which is shown at the end too, is the one where that first girl has her head just exploded. Like, physically on screen, like a watermelon dropped on the floor.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Once again, if you haven't watched it and if you're listening right now, please go and watch it. We had a blast watching it. It's hilarious. So speaking of its comedy, what makes this movie so funny?
It's actually just so bad. Like, and they keep adding on to the killbots. It's like, okay, so they have knife hands. That's cool. Okay, so they have tasers. That's cool. Lasers. Wow. Explosives. Okay. Oh, that's a laser cutter. They need that. And it's so insane the way they just ramp these things up continuously. And an explosion doesn't even kill one, too. It's so goofy to me. They have such a stupid little design, and they're funny to just watch them roll around and murder things.
I think another thing, like the kind of bad movie part, is the acting itself. Like, I don't even remember the character's name, but the one who chews gum all the time. He's just there. Like, the scene is over. He's just staring into the camera chewing gum.
He doesn't get a character name anymore. He's Gumboy. He's Gumboy. Yeah, he just has massive aura for just chewing gum the entire time. He's like macking on it too as well. He has his mouth fully open and he's going wah, wah, wah.
I don't like how you use that word, but hear me out. Do we know, is that the same person who, like, in the early scene he's like leaving, he's like quack, quack, quack or whatever? Like, I feel like the characters are just so weird and like random. Like, you have someone who's smacking gum, you have someone who's like saying bye and then quacking at someone for no reason. There's no mention of ducks. You're not like trying to intimidate. You're like, bye homies, quack, quack, quack. Like, what is that? And then I think just also some of the kills are just funny because when the one dude was going for cigarettes in the cigarette machine, the robot, like, not
That's
like
Gumboy.
Oh, yeah, it's Gumboy. It's
Well,
Gumboy.
when he gets like pushed over or whatever, you can see the arm not even like get close to his neck. It's like a solid inch away. The next scene, like as it closes, it's like an inch away from the neck, like not even that close. And the next scene, all of a sudden, oh, his entire throat is like slit, and it's like, that is the worst kill. But oh my god, that is just so funny.
Okay, I'm back on the topic of the gum. He was chewing the ever living life out of that. Like, you think it'd be out of flavor by the time he died. I was like, expecting that there'd be some part of the gum that comes into play, like he'd use the gum to like clog up the like treads or something. But no, he just chews gum.
Maybe the actor was just nervous and that was like something that he used during scenes.
You know what? Maybe. Let's move on a little bit. The music. I know we talk about the music every single time that we are on this podcast, but specifically in this movie, love the music. All the synthesizers from the 80s. How do you think it adds to like the feel of the movie?
I think it's very quintessentially 80s. Like that is like when you think of 80s movies or 80s anything, even the music from the era, you think of stuff like that. And so I think it adds to the atmosphere, whether intentionally or not, of being, even though it was like a bad movie, of still being a movie of the 80s.
I don't think I could have put it any better. It's quintessentially 80s, especially like the Terminator themes, the apocalyptic robot AI themes. It's 80s.
They took it's like the 80s of 80s of 80s. It's like you can't get more 80s than that, I feel.
Yeah, there's a lot of nostalgia in it. It's really fun. I like the movie. But let's talk about what's your favorite moment in the movie? Favorite line delivery, favorite kill, whatever. What's just your favorite moment?
I really, for some reason, enjoy the one scene where the killer robot, I don't remember his name, but he throws a dude like off the edge of, was it the third floor or the second floor?
It's like the third floor.
The third floor, and he just falls and dies.
Yeah, he like falls like a rag doll.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of the movie is the mall itself with the massive, crazy security doors. Like,
What is
you
in
don't
the mall?
need those. Yeah.
For me, I would just have to say, as weird as this is going to sound, I actually just enjoy just listening to just a janitor that just hates people and just like, if I catch whoever's done this, they're dead meat. And I'm like, honestly, I think he had more character than every character in the entire story combined. I liked him.
And then he gets
Literally.
electrocuted.
Yeah, and then he gets electrocuted. Best character gets electrocuted. My favorite line delivery is, I don't know if you guys remember this, but you remember when like all the like couples are together and there's the one guy that's like, you smell like pizza. Or no, you smell like pepperoni.
I like pepperoni is what he said after.
Yeah. That's such a like cheesy line delivery. Not to give puns on here, but it's such a cheesy line delivery. But I'd say my favorite moment is at the end when they're doing the credits and they show the one girl and it shows her head exploded. I feel like that's such a little like fun way to end the movie. It's very much a movie of the 80s. It's definitely been a little deteriorated by the time, but it's pure nostalgia and it's a lot of fun to watch. Any final thoughts on the movie?
I like seeing WALL-E 2 because I loved WALL-E, so I'm glad they made a second version of WALL-E for everyone to watch.
We said it a couple times. What is in this mall?
I have no idea. There's got to be some like Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark treasure in here. There's got to be some, like the entire U.S. Treasury does not have that kind of security.
It's Fort Knox. Like,
And something Corbin and I were talking about a while ago is this movie seems to be very explicit, to say the least.
at least in the very beginning, like every scene, it seemed the directors had something to say. Like,
Yeah, but I feel like that's also commenting on teens and like the sin factor. It's
Yeah,
like,
true.
oh, they're being like explicit and doing things like they shouldn't do, so the killer robots will get to them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But let's go back one final time to the topic of what is in the mall. What do you think is in the mall that makes it this heavily guarded security door, 3 killer robots that have these literal laser beams that look like they're like plastered onto the film strip, which is really funny. But what do you think is in the mall that makes it this heavily guarded?
Hear me out. Just hear me out. There's an underground lab, a government facility experimenting on aliens. This was original Area 51. Because why else do these robots have these powers and these abilities that aren't capable in the 80s? Like, I'm just saying, it's got to be a government facility or something. Maybe it's WALL-E.
It's NORAD 2.0.
I think it's a prequel to Terminator. I think this is what Skynet was before they made Terminators. They made killer robots. All right. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening, Rebels, and until next time, have a nice day.